Hey YouTube, it's Michael Gallagher here, the Media Preacher, with another video and another movie review. Now last night, myself and my wife got back from the pictures having seen the new Justice League DC movie. And I've been thinking about it and I wanted to do a review on it because, to be honest, I'm not sure where I sit with this movie yet. I'm not sure if I really enjoyed it, if I thought it was a good night out at the cinema, or if in time I'm going to look back and think, that's actually not a very good film. I don't know what I think about it yet. What I would say is that it's not a perfect film, and it certainly has its issues. One of them is the complete change of tone from the other film. So you've got Man of Steel, you've got Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice, you've got the Wonder Woman movie, and now you've got this movie. And this movie is almost feeling like it's trying to be a Marvel movie in some respects. Anybody that's seen the trailer will know what I'm talking about, because they're trying to introduce sort of buddy-buddy aspects of humour into it, which is not necessarily, I think, a bad thing, because I found myself smiling in parts of it, but it just doesn't fit the original tone. So there's definitely a change of direction in this movie. The movie is also a lot shorter than a lot of the other DC movies that have followed it. And I don't think that's a good thing, because this movie feels a bit rushed in places. Certainly as we're introducing new characters who we don't know before, and it's giving you sort of their backstory and their origin story in sort of 5 minutes. And now let's move on to the actual story that this is about. And for me, this is really indicative of the problems that DC have had. And it's one of the main problems that they've had. One of the main reasons I think that the Avengers work so well is because Marvel put in the work. They put in the time. They introduced the characters one at a time. You had the Iron Man movie. You had the Thor movie. You had the first Incredible Hulk movie. And then they amalgamated them, and you were excited to see those characters come together, and all of the foundations and groundwork had been laid because their origin story had already been told. Now, DC haven't bothered to do that. They've not given us a new Batman film at all. But we don't need a new Batman film because Christopher Nolan and Bale did such a good job with Batman. We just don't need a new Batman standalone film. And Ben Affleck's not bad as Batman, but he's not Christian Bale. So we haven't had a Batman movie. We have had a Superman movie, in fairness. But we haven't had an Aquaman movie. We haven't had a Cyborg movie. We have had a Wonder Woman movie, but again, that came out after the Batman vs Superman movie that introduced her character. And when I first saw that movie at the cinema, I was scratching my head as to who she was or what she was doing. Having now seen her origin movie and understanding where she fits, that all makes a lot more sense. But when I first saw that film theatrically, her scenes slowed the film down and made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. And it's just sort of DC putting the cart before the horse. A classic example of putting the cart before the horse. The introduction to the new characters is done quite well in the movie, but as I say, it is nevertheless quite rushed, because then they're also trying to get in the villain and what's happening in this and why the team have got to get together and who they've got to fight, as well as introducing all the characters. And they've got a 120-minute runtime, which just I didn't think was enough. Although the introductions are not done really, really terribly, I don't think they're great, and I think there's a bit of a missed opportunity there. They also rushed through bringing back Superman. I hope I'm not spoiling this for anybody, but Superman is resurrected in the movie. And that's all done very quickly as well. Let's bring him back to life, and now let's move on with the story. Whereas that probably should have been a film in its own, the death of Superman and then the resurrection of Superman. You know, there was going to be that Nick Cage and Tim Burton movie that you can find all about on the internet and on YouTube. And it should have been a movie in itself. It was just a bit rushed because it's great. Another problem with this film was there's just too much CGI. It's not even just that the shots are filled with CGI. A lot of the camera angles are CGI. Not everything has to be some huge tracking shot where you're tracking all around the character and the action, and it probably looks great in 3D. I watched it in 2D. But it's totally unnecessary. The Wonder Woman movie was guilty of too much CGI. The last Star Trek movie was guilty of too much CGI and these sort of fake camera movements that are recreated in the computer. And they don't look real. It takes you out of the movie because I think they look like computer games. And my last real gripe with the film was the fact that whilst Ben Affleck is not necessarily a bad Batman or a bad Bruce Wayne, I don't think he's a great Batman or Bruce Wayne either, but in this film, he doesn't really do very much but get the gang together. So he gets the gang together and then he sort of, he doesn't do a lot. The best character in the movie is probably Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot kills it as Wonder Woman. She's absolutely fantastic. And the first action scene in the bank with her was just, I was almost punching the sky, trying to dodge the bullets from my hands, doing all this sort of thing. That was cool. Superman coming back into the movie is fantastic, and Superman kicks ass in this film. Henry Cavill is not Christopher Reeve. He's never going to be Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve is Superman. But you know what? He's not a bad Superman either. And I think he does a really, really good job. And he gets, in my mind, the best line in the movie, where he's kicking the villain's ass and he gets to say to the villain, "I believe in truth, but I also believe in justice." And then he delivers a killer punch. And I was just like, yes, go for it. And my wife thought that was a bit cheesy, but it got my heart racing. I thought that was the best part in the film. The score of the movie is really good. It's not utilised as much as it could be. So Denny Elfman scored the movie. He, of course, scored the original Batman movie. And when Batman's on, occasionally he sort of plays that original Batman theme. But it's quite quiet. I think it should have been a lot bolder and a lot brasher. The same way with Superman. Superman's got a great John Williams theme. As he comes onto the screen, you want that music to play because that makes it great. It really is the icing on the cake. And while the music does give a few John Williams nods, it doesn't do full-out Superman score. Gal Gadot, of course, got her score for Wonder Woman now, which is fantastic, and every time she goes into action, that theme plays. But I felt the musical cues could have been a bit stronger. In terms of the really great things about this film, you know what? It's a really entertaining night at the cinema. It's a really good movie to go watch at the cinema, and I would implore anybody to go and watch it. It's worth the price of admission 100%, just to see Wonder Woman and Superman kicking ass together. You've also got Batman there, sort of at a bit of a loose end. And then the new characters, Cyborg and The Flash particularly, I thought were really good and made a good part of the team. Aquaman, I wasn't so sure about. Maybe it's because we haven't had his full backstory. I don't know much about these other characters because I don't read an awful lot. I don't read any comic books. And so I'm coming to this sort of cold in many respects. But Aquaman didn't seem to do a lot. There were a few scenes where he's under the water and he can help, but then the last act takes part out of the water, and so I'm thinking, well, what can he do? What good's he then? He's not really any good, he doesn't need to be there. The villain in the movie is not as bad as everybody's saying he is. Everyone's saying the villain's very poor on the reviews that I've read. I actually thought he did a pretty good job. The problem is, the villain's going up against not just Superman, not just Wonder Woman, not just Batman, and not just Aquaman, The Flash and Cyborg. He's got to go against all of them, and so they're all larger-than-life characters. They're characters we're already invested in, and so it's hard, perhaps, to cast a shadow over those characters, and he shouldn't cast a shadow over those characters because they're the heroes and they're the stars. But I think he was pretty menacing in places, and he does a pretty good job. The only problem with him is he's a little bit generic, kind of like the villain in the last X-Men movie. He was a bit generic, and I think this villain, probably Steppenwolf, probably suffers from much of the same fate. And again, because the movie's so rushed, you don't really see a lot of his backstory, so you're not that invested in him, which is a bit of a problem with the film. Another problem with the film is it's just not very original, because we've had the Infinity Stones in the Marvel films, and Marvel have taken their time. They've introduced different Infinity Stones in different locations throughout different movies. DC can't wait. They're putting the cart before the horse again. They don't have a very original storyline because rather than Infinity Stones, we have these 3 boxes that the villain is trying to collect in order to put together and create a cataclysmic event which will destroy the Earth. So he's trying to get these 3 boxes together, and throughout the 2-hour runtime, including introducing all sorts of new characters and getting the gang together, he is getting these boxes together, and the climax is him trying to put the boxes together, and the good guys have to stop him. That's not very original, because Marvel have already done almost exactly the same storyline. It's a little bit lazy. It also is lazy for the same reason as everything else. It's a bit rushed, and it hasn't taken its time over introducing where the boxes are, where they come from, how they've come to be there. We find out that Wonder Woman's people, the Amazonians, actually have one of these boxes, but that should have been set up probably in the Wonder Woman movie, and it wasn't. And the other odd thing about this movie, see if anybody can help me with this and answer this question, is that in one of the lines, Wonder Woman says, oh, that the Amazonians can't leave, sort of their place. They can't leave. And I was scratching my head at that point thinking, well, how the hell did Wonder Woman leave? Because she just got on a boat with Star Trek and rode straight out of there. She didn't have any problems leaving whatsoever. Is it because she's a god? Am I missing something? Please, if you can help me in the comments with this, please help me, because that totally puzzled me. Yeah, there are some issues with the movie. There are some good things about the movie. It's certainly not terrible. I don't know how history will treat it, and I don't know how my brain will treat it coming back to it in 10 years. Is it a movie that I'm going to come back to? I feel like with some of the Marvel movies, they're movies that you can revisit. And a lot of them I already have revisited. The original Iron Man movie is one of my absolute favourites. I love the Thor movies. Already I can go back and revisit them. Guardians of the Galaxy, of course. Both those films are fantastic. I'm not sure that's in quite that category. I don't think that this movie's in that category. It's kind of like when I went to see Batman Forever in 1995 at the Pictures. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good night out. I knew it was a flawed movie. I watch it now, I think it's a terrible movie. I don't like it very much. I wonder if I'll come back to this movie in sort of 20 years' time with it was good at the time, it was a movie of its time. Or if when all DC have released all of their films and you're looking at them as a canon, and you're looking at them with the knowledge as to who these characters are, actually that will enrich this film. I anticipate, a lot of people have already mentioned this on YouTube, that when this movie is eventually released on Blu-ray, it's going to have an extended cut. And the movie may benefit greatly from an extended cut. I'm not sure that Batman and Superman did, because I'm not sure how great that movie was, to be honest. But this might be a better film. I felt like I was enjoying it more. I felt more invested, and it felt more fun. And films like this should be fun. I would suggest, if you're not sure about going to see it, then absolutely put the money in your pocket, go and pay and go and see this film, because it's worth going to see at the cinema. Is it a great film? Probably not. Is it a terrible film? Probably not. It's a good film. It's a good night at the cinema. So that's Michael Gallagher, the Media Preacher. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, hit the like button and leave me a comment in the sections. See you soon. Bye-bye.